Project Management Section at the Massachusetts Department of Transportation's Highway Division headquarters in Boston. Once the hearing is completed this evening, the attendance sheet will become a part of the public record. So if you would like your attendance at this hearing to be part of the public record, please sign in on the sign-in sheet located by the door. Now I would like to introduce the members of the hearing panel. We have Laura Hanson from the District 2 office, Shirley Shiver from our Right-of-Way Bureau, Aaron Keegan from Fuss & O'Neill, MassDOT's design consultant for this project. And our transcriptionist of advanced court reporting will be making a verbatim transcript of tonight's hearing for the public record as required by law. And in the handout, notice of hearing is included on page 2. This notice appeared in the Republican and the Holyoke Sun on Thursday, August 7 and Thursday, August 14, 2025, and El Sol Latino in Spanish on the same dates. A copy of this notice will be attached in the final hearing transcript. Page 4 of the handout explains the purpose of the hearing, which gives us an opportunity to make a formal presentation of the proposed project and at the same time allows us to record your input regarding the project. The project we will be presenting is intersection improvements at Beech Street, Resnic Blvd, and West Franklin Street. It will remove the traffic signal at the project location and construct a roundabout to facilitate safer and more efficient traffic flow. Pedestrians and bicyclists will be safely accommodated through the construction of 10-foot wide shared-use paths around the circumference of the roundabout. We are currently in the design stage, which means that the project is not yet complete, and we welcome your feedback. The design is expected to be completed in the summer of 2027. Construction is expected to be completed within 3 years. We estimate the total project will cost approximately $6.8 million, which will come from federal aid funding, with the Federal Highway Administration funding 90% of the total construction cost. MassDOT funds the remaining 10%. This project must be programmed in the statewide transportation improvement program in the appropriate federal fiscal year in order for MassDOT to solicit bids for eventual construction. The total estimated cost of the project does not include any right-of-way acquisition costs. As you may be aware, the reason for the project is a history of crashes at the project location. Now, Aaron Keegan of Fuss & O'Neill is going to tell you about MassDOT's project in detail and how it will construct a roundabout at the project location to improve safety, efficiency, and accessibility at the project location. Please keep in mind the project we are presenting to you tonight is still in the design stage. Once Aaron is done telling you about the design, I'll explain the hearing procedure and then open up the hearing to your questions and comments, which we will take into consideration when completing the project's design. Please hold your questions until after the presentation.
Thank you, John. As John mentioned, my name is Aaron Keegan, the design engineer with Fuss & O'Neill. We're located in Springfield. We've been working with MassDOT on this project for at least 3 years, and we're happy to present the 25% design to you tonight. Just getting started on MassDOT public meetings and procedures. Just keep in mind this meeting may be recorded and by a regional news outlet, and they may choose to retain and distribute the footage. Also, all parts of the hearing are considered public record. And important notes that there will be questions and answers after the formal presentation part of the evening. We also have a survey. Please, if you so choose, please take time to respond to our survey. Thank you. And also, just procedures, housekeeping. MassDOT's policy on diversity and civil rights. All MassDOT activities, including public meetings, are free of discrimination. MassDOT complies with the federal and state civil rights requirements preventing discrimination. And we welcome diversity from across our entire service area. I should mention that we do have an interpreter team tonight. If anyone would choose to hear the meeting in Spanish, we have headphones available just outside the door in the lobby, and they will be interpreting the meeting into Spanish. Okay, tonight's participants, we have, as John mentioned, John is the project manager. We have Laura Hanson of MassDOT District 2. We have the mayor of Holyoke, Mayor Joshua García, and Shirley Shiver from the MassDOT Right-of-Way Bureau. We have Matt Sokop, the city engineer for the city of Holyoke, And I would invite the mayor, if you would like to say anything tonight, a little welcome.
Hello, everybody. I know that these public meetings can sometimes feel a little institutional and wonky, but I want to make sure that in this process, when you leave here, at minimum, you understand what's happening, why it's happening, whether or not we like roundabouts, right? Like, you know, we are a community of differences. Everyone has perspectives. I appreciate MassDOT being as inclusive as possible in its design, trying to navigate perspectives, because at the end of it all, that's what community development it's all about is, you know, the old saying that a donkey is a horse put together by a committee, and I can stand up here and confidently say that donkeys are beautiful creatures. And so I appreciate you coming out on this rainy day this evening on a Wednesday to be part of this process. Like you have heard, this isn't the only time. Maybe you'll leave here and something else will come up. There's opportunities to email, to send letters, to call perhaps. Obviously in the people's office, you can call me, you can email me. I'll make sure the information gets in. But I think what's important for me as the facilitator of resources here in the city is that at minimum, we understand clearly what's going on, why, so you're not leaving here confused, and that this team is taking in that feedback and making sure that as it continues to develop as designed, that it's specific, it's focused to achieve our tasks ahead, which is really all about mobility safety, and I think you're going to hear about that from the engineer. The look and feel, fantastic, but this is really about mobility safety. I know that means a lot. That means differently to a lot of people based on perceptions and experiences. Some people will tell you, all of you. Thank you so much to our guests here. Please be nice to our guests here in the city of Holyoke. We have a perception here we're trying to overcome, and believe it or not, we're actually a very lovely city. So welcome, and thank you for the time that you're putting in to help us navigate our community challenges so that we can get to the progress that we're all trying to get to.
Thank you, Mayor.
Oh, and I'm so sorry. I do this all the time. I'm sorry I missed it. We do have Ward 6 City Councilor here. Your ward councilor is with us, Juan Anderson Burgos, and I believe there's one other councilor here. We got candidates running for councilor, but I just want to make sure that you understand that your ward rep is here, and who's also, you know, constituent services and responsive. So,
All right, thank you. Okay, so just to let everyone know, we did advertise the meeting in several regional news publications. That it would include the Springfield Republican on August 7th and 14th, the Holyoke Sun, August 7th and 14th also, El Sol Latino, MassDOT website. It was also advertised on the city's social media and website. Okay, so our agenda for tonight, I won't read the whole list, but we have 13 parts, and we'll step through it fairly quickly. I think it'll take maybe a little less than an hour, and then we'll have our public comment period. Okay, so let's start with why was this project initiated? Well, first I should say that the project was initiated by MassDOT, and it was because of a safety statistics issue that they noticed happening at this intersection. MassDOT keeps statistics on all roads in the state, and they have a list called the top 200 crash rates. They track the intersections that are in the top 200 of the whole state, and this landed on that list at one time in 2018, and that caught the attention of MassDOT, which, when that happens, they think, well, maybe we need to do a project there. So that's how the project got the attention of MassDOT. I'm showing on this slide the project area, that many of you I'm sure are familiar with. The project area is shown in yellow in this map, and then some of the call-outs around the yellow area are some of the points of interest that use the intersection, including, of course, the Senior Center, where we are tonight. But we've also got recreational sports fields, John Young Field, Roberts Field. Holyoke High School, of course, is very close to the intersection. We have a few other regional important places in the city for public use. Okay, so touching on what I was referring to earlier, so in 2015 through 2017, this intersection, Resnic Boulevard, West Franklin Street, and Beech Street, was in the top 200 of crash rates for the state. And MassDOT actually has a program called the Highway Safety Improvement Program. It's a federal funding program that targets unsafe intersections. And so this intersection qualifies for safety improvement funding from Federal Highway because of its unfortunately poor safety record. In particular, there's a high rate of pedestrian crashes at the intersection. So there's a statistically high number of pedestrians struck by vehicles who are using crosswalks at the intersection. And this just shows you a shape. MassDOT, they keep track of the statistics and the numbers, and they also map them. And this blue shape is actually the vehicular crash cluster, as MassDOT calls it, that overlays the intersection, and that's where the higher than average rate of vehicle crashes has occurred. There's also a separate mapping for the pedestrian crash cluster area. And you can see this cluster is larger, and it overlaps the intersection we'll be talking about tonight, and actually extends further south down Franklin Street and Resnic Boulevard. So this is part of a continuous area of unfortunately high pedestrian crash rates in this area of the city. Okay, so that's a little bit why the project was initiated, the purpose and need of the project from MassDOT's perspective. And now I'd like to tell you a little bit about the project development history. As I mentioned, the project's been under design for approximately 3 years. Actually longer than that, 5 years, excuse me. So you can see 5 years, November 2020 is when the project was actually initiated. And there was a road safety audit in 2021. That's actually a meeting that takes place between the city engineering, city first responders like police and fire, engineering, and the design consultant. And they actually walk also the public transit providers in the area attended, and public schools. So it's a meeting where the area is walked, and problems and solutions are discussed, and then there's a report that gets published on MassDOT's website about potential solutions at the intersection. That all happened in 2021. In 2022 is when the actual conceptual design started, and it started out, as I'll talk about a little bit later, it started out as either an improved signalized intersection, or could it be something else, such as a roundabout. So we'll hear more about that shortly, but that started in 2022. Next, in 2023, we had the first pre-25% design, or what MassDOT calls intersection control evaluation. They have a standard process to try to decide what the type of intersection they want to move forward with in the design. So that took place in 2023. And then from that point on, we've been working on the 25% design plans. When MassDOT designs a project, there's several design review periods. It can take a little bit of time, but it results in a better design typically, because they take the time to review it at different stages. So here we are, March 2025. We have the 25% design plans approved by MassDOT. The city has had a chance to review the city engineering department, and so we are presenting the preferred alternative for 25% design tonight. I should mention we do have paper plans. If anyone has not seen the plans, we have paper plans on the back table, and also these color renderings to kind of demonstrate what the design concept is. We'll also show it on the slides. Okay, so what project goals are we trying to accomplish with the redesign? Number one, improve safety. We're trying to reduce the vehicular and the pedestrian crash rate at the intersection. Also, bicycle crashes. Not a huge history of bicycle riding and bicycle crashes at the intersection, but we'd like to make it safer for bicyclists as well as pedestrians and vehicles. Number two, we have to update the intersection design. So as soon as we try to address the safety issues, we have to bring the intersection up to current MassDOT design standards. It's been probably over 25 years since the intersection was last designed, so we have to make the design of the intersection conform to the present day design standards. And that includes, MassDOT now requires accommodations for bicycles at all intersections. So we want to provide shared use paths at this intersection, which can be used by either pedestrians or bicycles off-road. So the other issue is that the existing traffic signal equipment at the intersection is outdated, so it wouldn't be able to be reused. It would have to be either replaced or the intersection could be controlled by something else other than traffic signals. Another purpose of the project is to improve connectivity. So as I had a slide earlier with some attractions that are kind of near the intersection. This goes a little further, so we can see the schools, both the high school and the middle school, not far away at the medical center. We have Mackenzie Stadium and the athletic fields. There's also a Valley Bike docking station that's on Resnic Blvd, very close to the intersection. Of course, we have the senior center, there's the library, and not too far away is the canal walk. And some have envisioned an eventual connection between this intersection and the canal walk. So part of the purpose of the intersection is to make sure that this intersection can connect to these various land uses for the public. Okay, so what alternatives were considered? Okay, so early on in the design, there were two roundabout alternatives. One, that's shown in this picture in the middle, is a kind of traditional circular roundabout. And we would have to, there's design parameters and minimum sizes that we would have to fit that traditional circle to make it fit this intersection. We also looked at a custom shape roundabout, which would be something that is not circular, and the purpose of that would be to fit it into the shape of this intersection. Resnic Blvd and Beech Street, they don't meet at a perfect square angle, and so the shape of the intersection kind of lends itself to a non-circular roundabout. We also looked at 4 different traffic signal alternatives, so these would be completely replacing the traffic signal equipment at the intersection to modern equipment. And we were experimenting with different lane configurations on Beech Street. So it would be restricting left turns in one alternative, then protecting all left turns with an exclusive green phase in another alternative. We also were changing the configuration of the northbound right turn on Resnic Blvd. Currently it's a channelized right turn. There's a little island. And so we did some different signalized alternatives that kept that channelization of that right turn. Some of them would remove that channelization. So those different lane configurations made up the 4 different signalized alternatives. So we had 6 in total. And MassDOT has a standard process called ICE for short. It's the Intersection Control Evaluation Process. And it's a federally recommended process. And it basically is it's a cost-benefit analysis where you actually look at what the crash rates would be in the future if you change the design of the intersection. It puts a monetary value on the cost of a crash, injury, and so it tries to put a number value on all the costs and all the benefits of the project. And they use this process around the state, and they use it to have a standard way to compare different alternatives. We use that for this project. Okay, so what is the preferred alternative? So we went through the ICE process. We had a road safety audit. There were several design reviews. There was opportunities for the city engineering department to review what we were doing. And we landed on the best alternative as a custom roundabout. So the custom roundabout is as I said, a custom shape. And we've designed it specifically to fit in the intersection and to accommodate the trucks that might be using the intersection. You'll notice that there are 2 lanes on the eastbound approach of Beech Street with a right turn exclusive lane. Also, there's 2 lanes on the northbound approach of Resnic Blvd, as there are today. We're keeping those 2 lanes. However, on West Franklin Street, there's 1 lane in each direction. On Beech Street, coming westbound, there's 1 lane approaching the intersection. So that's all been designed based on the traffic volume at the intersection. Where you see an extra lane, it's because there's a little bit of extra traffic volume demand, and that extra lane is needed to prevent long queuing. Also, we've provided enhanced crosswalk safety at all 4 corners of the roundabout. The 3 of the crosswalks, so that's Resnic Blvd, Beech Street on the west side of the roundabout, and West Franklin Street would have rectangular rapid flashing beacons. I'll show you a picture of that in a moment, but that's an enhanced type of crosswalk treatment. Essentially, you press a button and it's a yellow flashing light to let drivers know that the pedestrian intends to cross. The leg of the intersection on Beech Street on the east side of the intersection actually has a different type of pedestrian safety measure. It's called a pedestrian hybrid beacon. And that, I'll show you a picture in a moment, but that's a little bit of extra safety. It involves an overhead flashing light. The roundabout includes a mountable truck apron, so the area that you see in this kind of dark red color is, it's slightly raised, but a truck and a large freight truck can mount that area to complete turns. This red area that's on Resnic Blvd in that right turn, that is also mountable by trucks who need to make a wide turn. The center island, we're showing that as grass currently, but at 25% design, we don't finalize that landscaping yet, so that's something that can be refined at future design stages, and we would certainly want the city to have input as to how the center of the roundabout is planted with landscaping, etc. Okay, I do want to just quickly touch on the difference between a roundabout and a rotary. We often hear this question at public meetings, and I just want to touch on it. So this product is recommending a roundabout, and what a roundabout is and how that differs from a rotary is a roundabout is designed for lower speeds. It's primarily designed for safety, and it's less concerned with moving vehicles through the intersection quickly. And a rotary, which is a little bit more old-fashioned, you don't see too many of them being built anymore, but they do still exist in our state. They tend to be larger in diameter, and they try to get vehicles moving faster. They tend to be in places where fewer pedestrians actually cross the intersection, such as a highway interchange or something like that. So I just wanted to touch on that. The preferred alternative for this is in fact a roundabout and not a rotary. Okay, so I mentioned the rectangular rapid flashing beacon earlier, and I'm showing a picture of it here. It is a pedestrian warning sign with a bike and a pedestrian on the sign. And when you cross the street, and perhaps many of you have seen these already, but you press the button and you get the flashing yellow. And so these would be at 3 of the legs of the roundabout to alert drivers to pedestrians crossing. These are proven, these have been studied a lot, and they're proven to reduce crash rates for pedestrians. And they improve the yield rate for motorists who actually slow down for pedestrians in the crosswalk, which is what we're trying to do. All right. So I mentioned on Beech Street on the east side of the roundabout, we have something different. It's called a pedestrian hybrid beacon. This is also a push-button activated overhead light. And there's a sequence, it flashes yellow and then it flashes red. It then becomes solid red, so it actually requires the cars to stop. And when the pedestrian has finished crossing the crosswalk, this is in a back to flashing red, which means that you can cross if the pedestrian's finished. You can actually pass through. So it's a little bit of a stronger safety control measure because it does require you to stop. It's not just a suggestion, but it's not. It doesn't create as much delay as a regular traffic signal because you can actually pass through it after the pedestrian has completed their crossing. So and the reason why we needed that on the east side of the intersection is because there's 2 lanes of Beech Street that exit the roundabout, and studies have shown that when you have 2 lanes exiting a roundabout, sometimes the vehicle speeds can get high, close to 40 miles per hour. So we want to keep pedestrians safe who are crossing that 3-lane crosswalk that's on that particular side of Beech Street. And that's the reason why we're using this enhanced safety treatment. Okay, and I just wanted to touch on trucks. I don't know if anybody is here from the fire department, or the school department. The roundabout has been designed so that school buses and the large ladder truck from the fire department can complete turns, all turns, at the roundabout without having to use the mountable apron. So they can just use the regular vehicle lanes. They can make all turns without having to go on the raised portion. The freight trucks will have to use the mountable portion of the roundabout. And so the largest vehicle that this has been designed to accommodate is a 72-foot tractor-trailer truck, which is that's typical for a MassDOT design project, and it's one of the largest tractor-trailers that you would see in a city context like Holyoke. So that's the design vehicle. Yes, the 40-foot bus, just like the ladder truck and the school bus, can make all turns without using the mountable apron of the roundabout. Yes.
The one that's on everyone's mind, I'm assuming that parade day and road race can get through there okay?
Yes, so the 72-foot truck is about as large as any of the floats that you would see. In fact, it's probably larger than any of the floats that you would see in the Holyoke St. Patrick's Day Parade. Yes. So. Okay, I wanted to also mention, we had a question from the public earlier. As many of you, I'm sure, know, this part of Beech Street was formerly part of a coordinated signal system. It was pre-timed so that the lights were coordinated at 25 miles per hour. That system has not been operating for some years, unfortunately. The equipment is no longer working, and it's so old that it can't be repaired, unfortunately. But we do want to let everyone know that this roundabout does not prevent that system from being repaired in the future. And so repairing that formerly coordinated signal system is not part of this project, but putting the roundabout in is compatible with the future repair of that coordinated signal system if the city so chooses to do that. Okay, so next I'm just going to move around to each street leg approach to the roundabout and just kind of talk about some of the features of the design. And we'll start with West Franklin Street. As I mentioned before, this is one lane in each direction. There is going to be the rectangular rapid flashing beacon at the crosswalk. We have shared use paths on both sides of the road, and they have to transition back to allow bicyclists to enter and exit the shared use paths. So there are bike ramps where the shared use paths end. Also notable on West Franklin Street is that the gas station driveways, right now there are 3 curb cuts for driveways at the gas station, and the design proposes to close one of those driveways for pedestrian safety. So you can see, formerly there was a driveway at the gas station located right here, and design proposes to close one of 3 driveways so that bikes and pedestrians can cross more safely. Okay, moving on to Resnic Blvd. This would be used to approach the roundabout traveling north. And you can see that, as I mentioned before, there's 2 northbound lanes. The rightmost lane is a right turn only. There is a little island, a mountable island, that's between the lanes, and that's so that cars will use either lane and not try to drive over it, but large trucks actually can drive over it if they need to complete the right turn. Also, this Resnic Blvd also has shared use paths on both sides with bike ramps to transition back to the street at the project limits. I also want to mention that there is a retaining wall. As some of you know, there's a hill coming down from the CVS property to the intersection. And in order to fit the design into the space, we actually need to remove some earth and then replace it with a retaining wall next to the shared use path. And so that would be at the perimeter of the currently occupied CVS property. It would not claim a parking space at the CVS, but it would result in a wall at the perimeter of their parking lot. Okay, let's move on to the Pine Street intersection. So this is really on Resnic Boulevard at the project limits. At the Pine Street and Resnic Boulevard intersection, the project only proposes to retime the existing traffic signal here. This is also where the Holyoke High School has an entrance and exit. And so the traffic signal would be retimed. That equipment is fairly new. I think it's less than 10 years old, actually. So it can be easily retimed to better work with the roundabout, and that's what we would do as part of this project. We want to prevent cars from queuing at this signal spilling back into the roundabout, so we have to make some timing adjustments here. We have the latest traffic counts so that we can optimize the operations at the intersection. Okay, let's go to Beech Street on the west side of the roundabout. There are 2 lanes, so we have a right turn only lane. This would be a change from the existing condition. As you know today, the rightmost lane is both a through lane and a right turn lane, and this design would change that lane into a right turn only lane. If you want to continue through, going east on Beech Street through the roundabout, you would need to use the center lane there to go through the roundabout. Also, on Beech Street, there are shared use paths on both sides with bike ramps to transition from the street to the shared use paths. And there are 2 proposed changes to 2 existing bus stops on this side of Beech Street. And I'll have a diagram where I can show you exactly what those changes are in a moment, but I just wanted to tell you that there are 2 changes to bus stops. Oh, and here's the slide. Okay, so right now on this part of Beech Street, there's 2 existing bus stops. Stop number 440, it's close to the intersection of Resnic Boulevard and Beech Street. It's on the northbound side of the road. The bus that serves these 2 bus stops is Route B23 in the PVTA system. And that bus stop, 440, is proposed to be relocated to a new accessible bus stop in front of Holyoke High School. The reason being is that keeping the existing bus stop that close to a roundabout is complicated in terms of operations. Also, we did coordinate with PVTA operations, and they looked at the use of these 2 stops, and they recommended that this was something we could do to mitigate the movement of stop 440. It would be to create a new stop in front of Holyoke High School. Across the street, so stop 436, that's headed in the southbound direction for bus B23. When we talked to PVTA, they recommended that since it's so close to existing stop 448, stop 448 is an existing stop near the intersection of B Street and Linden Street, that we could consolidate stop 436 to the location of stop 448. And we would have to upgrade stop 448 to be fully accessible as part of this change. Okay. All right, so moving on to the leg of the intersection, we're on Beech Street on the east side of the roundabout. And so this is where the CVS driveway is. We have 2 lanes exiting the roundabout, proceeding northeast on Route 202. There is another change here in lane configuration. So at Sargent Street, as you know, the rightmost lane today is a right turn only. And this design would change that to both a through and a right turn. The center lane would be a through and a left turn. So this is increasing the lanes that you can use to proceed on Beech Street through Sargent Street. The reason for the change is that we needed a little extra capacity to move vehicles northeast to prevent them from queuing back into the roundabout. And that's the reason for the change. As I mentioned earlier, the safety treatment at the crosswalk on this side of the roundabout would be the pedestrian hybrid beacon. There would be a don't block the box pavement marking at the CVS driveway, and so that's to help if vehicles are queuing at Sargent Street, we wouldn't want them to block the CVS driveway, so there's a special pavement marking that we put on the ground to ask vehicles not to stop and block the driveway. This side of the intersection also has shared use paths that transition back to the lanes at the edge of the shared use paths and with bike ramps. We are not proposing any changes to on-street parking. There's some on-street parking on Beech Street near the residential buildings, and we're not proposing any changes to those spaces in this part of Beech Street. And as I mentioned earlier, there is the retaining wall. You can see the rest of it here that abuts the CVS property in front of their parking lot. Okay, so that's Beech Street between Sargent and Resnic. Let's talk a little bit about the Sargent Street intersection at Beech Street. So, as I mentioned before, we have the lane configuration change. That's 2 through lanes on Beech Street going northeast through Sargent Street. We would also retime the traffic signal equipment here to try to prevent vehicles from queuing and reaching the roundabout. And so we would be using the existing signal equipment here and retiming it. And you notice that passing through Sargent Street on Beech Street, those 2 lanes exist on Beech Street, but they soon merge back to 1. So we'll see that on the next slide. So here we are. This is Beech Street between Sargent Street and Hampshire Street. You can see we've got the 2 lanes, 2 through lanes at Sargent Street, and then we have a taper. And that taper is designed to be safe for the speed limit of the road. It tapers back to 1 lane if you're traveling northeast by the time you reach Hampshire Street. And so I do want to mention, in fact, this is where we are seated today, passing the senior center. In order to fit in the safe transition lane, that taper lane going from 2 lanes back to 1, it would remove 7 on-street parking spaces on Beech Street on the senior center side of the road only, in order to fit in that transition from 2 lanes to 1. And so, you know, luckily the senior center does have a large surface parking lot, a fairly new one, so that hopefully helps mitigate that loss of 7 on-street parking spaces. I do want to mention on the opposite side of the street, there's a bus stop and there is on-street parking, and we're proposing no changes to either the bus stop or the on-street parking on the residential side of Beech Street here in this area. Okay, so we've stepped through the different legs of the design. I hope that gives you a good sense of what's being proposed. And the next part of the presentation is going to talk about right-of-way impacts. How will your property be impacted? Well, first I should mention that the City of Holyoke is responsible for acquiring all necessary rights in the public land for design. Even though this is a MassDOT design and MassDOT will be funding construction, the city actually has jurisdiction over all roads in the project area, and so they're responsible for acquiring any rights to property that are needed to complete the design. The types of right-of-way things that we're talking about could be a fee taking, it could be a permanent easement, or it could be a temporary easement during construction. And in fact, the project does propose all 3 types of those right-of-way impacts. As I mentioned, we do have right-of-way plans with us tonight. If you'd like to get a close look at the plans on the table in this corner, we do have paper copies that you can view. Affected property owners would be contacted by personnel from the City of Holyoke approximately during the fall, winter of 2025, 2026. That would be the first contact. It's a process that takes some time, but that would be the first time that property owners could expect to be notified. Preliminary right-of-way drawings are here for viewing, as I mentioned. So I do want to just kind of show folks, I've listed the addresses that are currently impacted by the project, and I won't read each one, but if you see a property here that you have an interest in, I would invite you to view the right-of-way plans that we've brought tonight to find out more information. And as I mentioned, we have fee takings. There are no structures, no buildings being proposed to be taken as part of this project. We also have permanent easements, and so that could be something if a utility is being requested to be placed on a private property, it needs a permanent easement, for example. That's one example of a permanent easement. And then we have temporary easements, which are typically requested during construction, and that's just to allow construction workers to set foot on abutting property. So just as a reminder, at this stage of the design, we're at 25%. We're having a public hearing tonight to get your feedback and ideas, and we do listen and record them. And so this is an opportunity for the public to comment on any impacts to adjacent property. I do want to mention one specific impact of the project because it's a little bit unique. And it's actually at the corner of Beech Street and Resnic Blvd. It abuts the playing field at John Young, where there's currently a softball field. And shown in yellow would be property needed to fit the roundabout and the shared use path at that corner. Now this property has a special designation. It's a protected open space as parkland in Massachusetts. And so the project proposes to convert that property to a shared use path and one lane to the roundabout. I would mention that it doesn't, as proposed, affect the playing field at John Young Field, nor does it impact the seating bleachers that people currently sit in to view the softball field. However, the Article 97 process, Article 97 is a part of the law in Massachusetts that protects open space, open parkland. This would have to be mitigated by the project, and that plan is going to be developed at the next design phase of the project. So the way that some municipalities mitigate for an impact like this might be to protect a different space, create a new park that equals the area of the impacted property at this field, for example. And so that's something that, if the design moves forward after 25%, will be developed by the project design team. Okay. And next, we have Shirley Shiver from MassDOT Right-of-Way Bureau, who would like to read a statement to you about how the right-of-way process works. So I'll give the microphone to Shirley.
Good evening, everyone. When the Commonwealth, acting through its Massachusetts Department of Transportation Highway Division, indicated it would accept the $6.8 million project for funding, the City of Holyoke accepted certain responsibilities. One of these responsibilities is acquiring the necessary rights in private and public lands for the design, construction, and public use of this project. My function is to review and recommend procedures that the City of Holyoke will use in acquiring these rights. The procedures must comply with both federal and state regulations. Affected property owners' rights are protected under Mass General laws, primarily Chapter 79, and because this project is receiving federal funds, property owners' rights are further defined under Title III of the Real Property Acts of 1970 as amended. The 25% preliminary right-of-way plan submission indicates the project requires a total of 5 feet, 13 permanent easements, and 15 temporary easements. Please understand, however, that the right-of-way plans are subject to change as the project design progresses. The property owners impacted by this project will be contacted by the City of Holyoke's municipal officials, who will present the proposed impacts to each owner and discuss the methods by which the needed rights for the project may be acquired. Frequently, municipalities will appeal for donations to minimize the acquisition cost for the community. Donations, however, are not required. The property owners are entitled to an appraisal, review appraisal, and just compensation. Right-of-way documents will be provided to each owner to help them understand the acquisition process and how the project affects their property. Copies of the right-of-way plans will be made available to interested parties on the city's website and available at the Holyoke Department of Public Works. And lastly, I will be available after the presentation to help answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Shirley. Next section is just a summary of how bicycles and pedestrians will be impacted by the project. The project does include 10-foot shared use paths, mentioned earlier, at all approaches to the intersection. So that's an improvement over the existing condition. We do have, of course, the bicycle ramps to get people from the street to the shared use paths. All pedestrian ramps will be upgraded to meet the Americans with Disabilities Act standards. And the Valley Bike Docking Station that's located on Resnic Blvd will remain as it is. No changes are proposed to the bike docking station. What are the environmental, cultural, and community impacts? I did mention the open space at John Young Field as proposed right-of-way impact of the project. There will be added impervious pavement, so the footprint of the paved area will grow a bit in order to fit the roundabout in, and that will require some creative stormwater management that will be part of the project paid for by MassDOT. In fact, underneath the project, we are proposing to separate the stormwater and the sewer outflow. At the edges of the project, of course, we have to tie back into the existing system, but that's a benefit of the project. At least for this intersection, we'll have separation between those stormwater and sewer systems. As I mentioned, there will be a bus stop relocation and one that will be consolidated with another existing stop, so that counts as a community impact that you should be aware of. And, okay, so that's the list, so thanks. That's the impacts that we want to bring to your attention. Okay, so now let's talk about construction. We're at 25% design, but we can already tell you some things about what would happen if the project reaches construction. Okay, so this would be a design, then it would be bid to public contractors, and then it would be built by a separate construction contractor. And that process is overseen by MassDOT and subject to all state rules regarding construction bidding, etc. The city would contact property owners beginning in the winter of 2025-2026, as we mentioned. That would be when you could expect to first be contacted regarding right-of-way impacts. There would be, the design is expected to be complete by the summer, spring-summer 2027, so we have a bit more time, and there may be some adjustments to the design between now and then. As I said, MassDOT likes to check the design at various stages, so there's going to be a lot of reviewing of the design between now and 2027. The construction would begin in the fall, winter of 2027 if all goes to plan. So that's the current schedule that we're on. The construction would then last between 2 and 3 years after beginning in the fall and winter of 2027. So you could expect an opening date of between 2029 and 2030 for the project. So it requires a little bit of patience. MassDOT, as I said, is funding the construction and the design, and in exchange, it does require municipalities to show a little bit of patience with the multi-step MassDOT design process. Okay, and how will road users be affected during construction? All right, so there may be some detours in place for short durations. There would be one lane open on each approach to the roundabout at all times, and this is important for emergency responders, of course the high school, middle school, but there could be short-term detours to allow construction to be completed. Short-term meaning less than a day typically. Emergency access to all properties would be maintained at all times, and sidewalk detours would be provided so that when the sidewalks are under construction, there's still a safe place for people to walk through the intersection. Very important here because of the proximity to the school. Also, I should mention this project may require some night work for paving, and that the terms and the hours that contractors are able to work would be regulated by the city's rules as to how late night work can proceed and when. And there would be dynamic message boards put up at the limits of the project, letting the public know key dates, key milestones during construction. Okay, so we're getting close to the end of the presentation. Let's talk about the next steps. Oops. Oh, there we go. Okay, next steps. So here we are. We are at the 25% design public hearing. Okay. Hopefully this is visible. I think the slide's still visible. The next milestone would be the spring of 2026. That would be the beginning of the 75% design. I should add that the 75% design it starts with the public comments from 25%, and the first step is to try to address or incorporate those public comments from tonight, and you can comment actually after this meeting as well, to accommodate those comments in the 75% design. So that's the next stage. Following that, during the spring of 2026, there's a number of environmental permits that would need to be completed for the project. During the spring and summer of 2027, that's, as we said, that's when we expect to complete the design for the project and gain full approval from both MassDOT and the City of Holyoke. The project would be advertised for construction, anticipated fall, winter of 2027, as we mentioned. So those are the key next steps. And contacts and more information after tonight's meeting. You can contact the City of Holyoke, specifically the City Engineer, Matt Sokop, who's here tonight, from the City Engineer's office. We have his email and phone number here. He also has his page on the city's website. You could also follow the City of Holyoke social media and website to find out if there's going to be any future events hosted by the city pertaining to or describing this design. Also, I should mention that plans for the project can be viewed in person at the City Engineer's office by appointment. And so if anyone wishes to do that after tonight's meeting, the process for doing so would be to contact the City Engineer and make an appointment to view the plans in person. Okay, so we've reached the question and discussion part of the evening. And I would invite John Freeman, the MassDOT project manager, back up to let you know how that process works. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Before I open the hearing to questions and comments, I would like to explain the hearing procedure. First, as stated previously, the purpose of this hearing is to solicit your input regarding this project. As the plans are not yet complete, we may not be able to answer all of your questions or respond to all of your comments at this time. Next, we ask that anyone who wishes to have his or her comments entered into the official hearing transcript, please stand up, identify yourself by name and affiliation, whether you are an abutter, local official, or concerned citizen, and spell your last name. This is necessary in order for us to obtain a full verbatim transcript as required by law. Also, the last sheet of the handout is a mail-in sheet. If you have any questions or comments which you would like to submit in writing, please use this sheet for that purpose. You may leave this sheet with me tonight, or you may mail it to the department within 10 days of this date, and it will become part of the official record. Finally, it is normal procedure to ask elected officials to offer their comments first. Are there any federal, state, or local officials who would like to speak at this time? Yes.
Grab the microphone. Thank you. I did receive a couple questions from my constituents that I want to put to the record.
Name,
Oh,
please.
sorry. Thank you. So I'm the Ward 6 City Councilor, Juan Anderson Burgos. So these are the questions that were asked to me by a constituent. More vehicles are going to be flying down Ladd Street, which is one of the side streets near the intersection, because they don't want to deal with the roundabout. That's one of the questions. How are they going to litigate that? The use of side streets just to avoid a roundabout. That's question one. Is it okay if I ask you just all these questions, and just for the record, just for a minute?
Yes.
Unless you wanted to answer that first one.
Yeah, we can answer that. If it's a public street, they can't prevent them from using it. I don't know, Aaron, if you want to take that or Laura.
Sure. Well, we've shown that on other project areas, and we'd be happy to provide evidence that roundabouts actually are, in many cases, better at moving traffic than traffic signals. And so, in fact, we think that it will make the intersection easier to travel through and not worse. So we would expect people that they would actually want to use it.
I'm assuming, yeah, I thought that.
Through your presentation, that's what I heard as well. Let's see. The other question was, which was a question that, or the statement that the mayor already mentioned regarding the parade, but I don't think that's going to be an issue, just because it seems like it's going to be wider, right?
Right, so we have designed the roundabout to accommodate a 72-foot truck,
Correct.
which should accommodate the parade, yes.
Okay, so,
Let's see. So Lavin Street. And then it was more of a comment, they wanted to see the money go towards fixing other streets and stuff like that, but this is federal funding, correct?
That's right. Yes.
So that's a different, yeah, all right. Well, those were the questions that were asked, but I'm sure a lot of my constituents who are here would love to ask you more questions, so I'll give you back to you.
Thank you.
I do want to let you know that the chair of the DPW board is here, as well as the chair of the planning board is here as well.
Okay, sure.
Thanks for the presentation. Did you mute me? My name's Mark Lubbold, L-U-B-O-L-D. I'm the chair of the DPW, but I'm also here as a concerned citizen and a Ward 6 constituent. So the only question I have, coming down Beech Street as they're approaching the roundabout to take the turn onto Resnic Blvd, do you have an estimation of what speeds cars are going to carry through there? And if you could talk a little bit just about that pedestrian crosswalk on Resnic. I just kind of envision people, looking left for traffic and turning right. The crosswalk is right there. If you could just kind of talk about that.
It's designed for approximately 25 miles per hour. The rectangular rapid flashing beacons will hopefully call attention to the driver to look both ways when there's a pedestrian wishing to cross.
And are those at the crosswalk, or would they be more towards, kind of the Beech
Those will be
Street?
at the crosswalk.
Okay.
So as John mentioned, we actually do have to go through a pretty rigorous process for the entry speeds to the roundabout, and we have to show that the curvature in the design would limit the comfortable speed of entering the roundabout to 25 miles per hour. Also, I do want to mention at the crosswalks, specifically on Resnic Blvd, we have to allow, if you can see the space between the crosswalk and the yield line at the roundabout, we have to allow the distance of at least one car so that people approaching the roundabout, they look for the pedestrian first, and then after they cross the roundabout, all they're looking at is the oncoming vehicle in the roundabout. So that spacing between the crosswalk and the actual yield line is intentional so that you don't have a car that's simultaneously looking at a pedestrian and an oncoming car.
Just especially during school time in the morning, because I come down West Franklin every day, and it just does get congested there with kids crossing, a lot of traffic coming down, and most people taking a right there, they're looking left up West Franklin, and they don't even do a rolling stop, they just go on red every day. It just gets a little precarious there with kids in the morning time and traffic. Just something to be aware of.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. So this came up a lot actually in the design, specifically on Resnic Blvd. Today, because Resnic Blvd, that right lane is a right turn only. We find that cars are trying to merge left as soon as possible on Beech Street so they can continue through. the fact that we've now made 2 through lanes on Beech Street means that you no longer have to enter from Resnic Boulevard and immediately merge left. So that gives drivers a little bit less to look at. You know, they can turn right and stay in that lane a little longer. So we're hoping that helps the issue as well. Yep.
Hi, my name is Jordana O'Connell, O''Connell. I'm a concerned citizen. I'd like to know what the plans are for the alternative streets. People will avoid this roundabout, especially during peak busy season times. And there needs to be a plan for those other streets because people will be speeding down those streets. There will be kids walking down those streets. I'd like to know what the plans are.
Well, I would just repeat what we have shown is that this roundabout would actually reduce delay and reduce queuing at the intersection. And so it would in fact not give people a logical reason to avoid it. They can still avoid it if they choose, but in terms of traffic operations, we've proven that it performs better than the existing signal. And that's part of the requirement for reaching 25% design stage. So we don't have any evidence that would show that this would be a worse performing intersection than the existing one. And for that reason, we haven't, predicted that people would try to avoid it. It actually may slow people down going through it for safety. And so if people are speeding on other streets around it, we'll have to address those issues at that time. But currently, the only plans that we have are for this intersection.
I think, though, for the purpose of the concern, everybody can hear me, right? Yes. Oh, okay. Just like what I described earlier when we did an introduction, right? Like there's different experiences people might have had with roundabouts wherever they've had experiences. And I know it's all about mobility safety and what we're doing in your professional observation experience as you described. I'm confident, or I'm sure that there's that thought, but also it's difficult to minimize other people's experiences that contribute toward their feeling as to whether or not they want to go through that roundabout and potentially get through where they need to go using a side street. So I think this is good input, and as we move forward, let's just make sure or be mindful that there might be a secondary impact to this and how we can, even if there's something on the city side, the city engineer, while we work on this project, how do we make sure that we can mitigate or de-escalate the potential of people entering the side neighborhoods to, something that's just going to require, keep it in the conversation and just continue to try to put our heads together and figure out, I'm pretty confident that might be a concern that's out there for some folks. Although, I'm sure once it's built, people see it, they try it and feel safe, but we can't say that it's not going to happen, you know what I mean? So in case, in lieu of the fact that it might happen, I think it's important we keep putting our heads together and figure out how we can, minimize that.
Thank you, Mayor García. I just wanted to see if we had any more federal, state, or local officials before we officially open to the public.
Yeah, you do have the chair of the planning board. Just acknowledge that Councilor Rivera at large also is in the space, and what he's saying, Councilor, is that they're allowing this is their idea, not mine. I would let the constituents speak first, but they're allowing the elected officials talk first if you have any questions. But go ahead. Madam Chair.
Minnie Nash, S-P-A-N-I-T-C-H. I'm the chair of the Holyoke Planning Board at the moment, and as a result, although I'm not a professional traffic or civil engineer, I spend a lot of time thinking about traffic issues. And one thing that has occurred to me, of course, in this discussion and this question is that safety issues on side streets might be mitigated
Hi, I think that those streets are most likely under the jurisdiction of the city of Holyoke, so it would be at their discretion whether they want to do with traffic calming. Can you hear me? Hi, thank you for your question. Those streets are under jurisdiction of the city of Holyoke, so it's up to their discretion if they want to pursue any traffic calming countermeasures.
Actually, again, while you were talking, the city engineer would just kind of sidebarring, brainstorming here that, speaking of traffic calming measures, while this project is happening, what are some of the things that we can do up and down West Franklin? Because I know that that's where, you know, we have a lot of parallel streets, concerns, it's being in the neighborhood, people need stop signs. What measures can we install if folks were to detour into a neighborhood? I think the concern is they're speeding through the neighborhood. We need to slow them down. And I know raised speed humps and raised crosswalks are popular, but maybe, Matt, what we can do is potentially plan for, take a look at those neighborhoods and what infrastructure or line painting or whatever can we install so that when, if and when people do use side neighborhoods to cut through, how do we slow them down? Can we do things to slow them down? That's kind of like a side project that works in parallel with this one, and it's just going to require us identifying it and then also putting a resource together so that we can, you know, get the support of the council and we can execute and install.
Thank you, Mayor. Do we have anyone else, any other elected officials? Okay, in that case, this hearing is now open to the public and we welcome your questions and comments.
That was a signing sheet. That was just a signing.
Oh, that, that's,
It has something to do with it.
okay, thank you. Sorry, Rick Purcell, Richard Purcell, P-U-R-C-E-L-L. I'm aware of in the past being 2 deaths. One of them was a lady that was crossing the street to watch her son play sports. Another lady recently was walking her dog. I'm sorry. I apologize. Now you're gonna hear the real Rick. So recently there were 2, well not recently, one death was a while back. A lady was going to watch her son play a sport at one of the fields, and another lady recently died walking her dog across the street. And to me, this is what is needed for that intersection. Thank you, DOT, for spending money in Holyoke. We need it, and it's for safety. And how much money does a human life cost if you save one? This could couldn't value it at $10 million if you wanted to, but you can't. You can't value a human life like that. And if it saves one life, then it saves a future. It could be a child in the middle school, it could be the high school. This is going to slow people down, and Lord knows we need people to slow down in Holyoke. And in answer to the side streets, we have a really big police budget. We could actually have the police streets if we need to help slow down traffic there. You know, like in certain areas of the city, the police are actually there at certain exits, at certain crossroads, watching to see if pedos are looking for kids to get off the bus and stuff like that. We can have those same officers at certain, during this construction, it's not like, and it's not during, it's during when the construction is happening, that's when people are going to avoid it. It's have the police there patrolling when it's high, when the high traffic is high so that it stops. That's what we pay the police to protect and serve, let them do their job. So I think it's a great project with everything. I don't expect anybody to have any resistance from the professionals. You do what you do, and if the side streets are a problem, we have to solutions that will resolve when we get to that process. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Purcell. We appreciate your support of the project. Anyone else?
I've seen several accidents over the last year, 2 years. I spoke to Joe O'Connor, who was the single division manager at the Holyoke Fire Department, and I believe something happened between the gas and electric on a construction project by Posteriors that upset all that timing sequence. The original project was a MassDOT project that was done probably somewhere around 30 years ago. And to see that fail, and to me it needs to be restored. I think this project is good in that it calms traffic down. I would suggest even all the way back up to Northampton Street. My biggest concern over the years has been kids walking down Beech Street on that sidewalk. There actually should be a guardrail between the sidewalk and the road so kids are not in danger of being struck by traffic coming down Beech Street. I really believe that should be, if not part of this project, looked at sometime in the future because it's just an accident that's going to probably, unfortunately, happen soon. Thank you for your project. Thank you for this time.
Thank you. So guardrail has specific requirements. There are certain criteria they have to meet in terms of slopes and space behind them. In order for MassDOT to consider installing them, they actually are less likely to protect pedestrians because they can. The point of the guardrail is to deflect, to protect the drivers and the occupants of the vehicles. Does Laura or Aaron, do you want to add on to that?
Well, I'll just say point taken. I mean, we need to keep pedestrians safe on the sidewalks. A barrier probably wouldn't be entertained as part of this project, but I heard your comment. Maybe a future project, we can look at how do we safely keep people separated from fast-moving traffic on Beech Street. There's other options besides a guardrail, but point taken. So.
Yeah, perhaps a grass buffer could work as well. That would be less, would have fewer roadblocks, so to speak, to implementation.
A couple of points on this particular concern. Is there any way we can rethink, and I don't even know if this is a MassDOT thing, or maybe it's a joint collaboration, considering you're doing this investment on the baseball field, taking there and reconfiguring, where, I don't know, maybe it's a guardrail that goes along the sidewalk between, on the curb between the sidewalk and the street, so that the kids that are walking down up and down that sidewalk or maybe this is asking for too much, putting the sidewalk on the other side of the fence. But speaking of the fence, if you're going to do that investment, taking away some parkland, replacing that fence with something that's probably a little safer, more, reliant, and then also improves the aesthetic in the area. The other point I wanted to make too is taking away 7 parking spaces adjacent to the senior center, because there's a parking lot, and I'm just wondering, and I'll put it out there and you can talk to the superiors of whether or not you can consider repaving the senior center parking lot. And you had something you wanted to include about West Franklin improvement safety project?
So the city's participating in MassDOT's always stop control projects, and the intersection of West Franklin and Layton Street was identified to be provided with new stop signs to make that an always stop intersection. So that in the near future, the LED flashing red stop signs will be installed for the intersection to further address the concerns with traffic at that intersection. It's difficult to given the site distances to come out of the intersection, so this is a mitigation to help offset crashes that we would see at that intersection. Hopefully address some of the concerns that we've heard tonight. I don't think there's any responses to any of that, but for the record, some points we want to include as you go forward. Maybe there's an opportunity there for those.
Yes, if there are any specific questions, those seem more like comments to me, but, and are good projects, but if you have any specific questions, you can feel free to email MassDOT project management at dot.state.ma.us.
Hi, my name is Christian Carde, C-A-R-D-E. I live on the corner of West Franklin and Beech Street. And I'm a little concerned because that corner, we do have a lot of accidents in that corner, including I also park there and I constantly get, my car kind of touched every time by trucks. So I'm concerned about trucks coming down from Beech Street, which is a very, there's a lot of traffic coming from South Hadley, and specifically heavy trucks. And I don't know how that will affect a little bit in terms of if trucks will decide to keep going down or turn into West Franklin. So maybe to avoid the roundabout, they will go down. And West Franklin it's a little bit there's some speeding there right now, as the only bump that we have, or the closest one, is by McMurray Avenue, which is a little bit far from the intersection. So I don't know if there could be something about how to reduce the speeds there that maybe will decrease accidents on West Franklin and Linden. So just a comment, feedback from that.
Thank you. Aaron, you want to speak to that?
Yes, thank you for the comment. So that specific intersection is slightly outside the project limits, and so we haven't yet devised an improved safety solution to that intersection. Based on your comment tonight, we can take a look at it and provide some additional traffic calming potentially on West Franklin. It would be subject to, I'm glad that you made the comment, it'll be in the public record, for MassDOT to allow the project limit to expand a little bit further to that Linden and West Franklin intersection. It would have to be to respond to a public comment such as yours, so there's a chance that we could maybe look at traffic calming in that intersection based on your comment, if MassDOT allows it at the next design stage.
I think that's the point he was just making. I think there's a current MassDOT project the city is working with, Matt. So if you want to, yeah, so that's going to be part of the intersection where we're looking at installing the always stop control on West Franklin and Linden. Four-way stop, correct? Yeah. And I'm hearing you on the 25-mile-per-hour light. We made note here. We're going to look into it and see how we can fix that so that it can get back on par. Nope. I know I'm on record. I'm not going to make any promises, but we'll see what we can do.
I just got a quick comment. So, we're at 25%. When we get to 100%, if you decide to name that rotary after a human being, maybe John McKenzie from the Guatemala winner, or one of the victims that actually perished in his neighborhood, and named it after one of them.
Thank you. Are there any additional comments?
Hi, my name is Patricia Marion, M-A-R-I-O-N, and I'm a concerned citizen. I live on Beech Street across from Mackenzie Field. And I don't want to beat a dead horse, Mayor Garcia, but the minute spring hits and these people know that the lights are all synchronized, they're going 85, 90 miles an hour up Beech Street. As I said, I'm not beating a dead horse. It's just amazing how fast they go with no regard for human life or dogs' lives or anything. Secondly, are we still going to have crossing guards at that intersection where the roundabout's going to be?
It's my understanding that the project would not prohibit crossing guards from being there. So I don't have an exact answer because our team is not in charge of the crossing guard.
No, that's why I
Oh,
addressed it,
great.
Mayor. Thank you.
I sure hope so.
Okay, because I see kids crossing there without
Yeah,
crossing guards,
yeah,
with
yeah,
the crossing
absolutely.
guards, they're not paying attention.
And they're all going to CVS, going to the gas station, getting snacks.
Yeah.
In high school, I was
Yeah.
one of those kids trying to cross that street, and you're absolutely right. And so I will. It doesn't prohibit. I'll touch base with the superintendent and just kind of reaffirm that we're indeed going to continue to see crossing guards in that intersection.
Okay. And thirdly, you mentioned the increased pedestrian accidents further down Resnic Boulevard. Do you know why that part had more accidents after the intersection? Were they speed related? Were they just people just crossing willy-nilly across? Because I go up and down that street every single day, twice a day, and there are people just walking all over the place. So how will this prohibit those accidents further down Resnick Boulevard?
More potholes.
Oh, man.
Josh.
Man. Car repairs, too.
It's a good question, and we can formally respond. I'm glad that your comments on the record. We have only looked at the statistics and the trends at the Resnick Boulevard and Beech Street intersection, and also the Pine Street and Resnick Boulevard. So any further than that, I actually don't know what the reason is for that large pedestrian crash cluster. But it's something that if we could get you that information if you provide us with your email. We can look into it and try to determine why the cluster takes that shape traveling south.
Yeah, the only reason I ask is because there is a basketball court there,
Oh.
and I didn't know if it was child-related or if that increased the numbers at all.
We can find out. I don't actually know the reason for that. Yeah.
Yeah, we can get back to you. We can get back to you on that. I encourage you to put that in writing via email in the next 10 days. Thank you. Anyone else?
Sorry, I have another question. Again, Jordiana O'Connell, do you need me to spell my name again? I already spoke. Do you need me to spell it again?
We're good.
Okay, thank you. I'm worried about the hospital. Maybe you guys address this. So there's lots of ambulances. If it's queued up, is that going to impact the timing for responses? Can you please address that?
So the hospital is to the west along Beech Street, is that correct? Yes, so we do have the 2 lanes headed eastbound approaching the roundabout, so if they're trying to pick someone up, there'll be space to go around. But as far as westbound back toward the hospital, I think we're only proposing 1 lane, is that correct? Yeah, so can you speak to like the space there?
Sure. I mean, I think so. The queuing, as a result of this roundabout, it actually outperforms the signal. So we would expect the queues to be shorter than the existing traffic signal. Another thing that we can do, there is a kind of best practice for emergency vehicles navigating a roundabout, and we certainly want to make sure that the City of Holyoke first responders are familiar with these guidelines and like how best to pass vehicles to get to a roundabout. There is kind of a method that they will have to kind of get familiar with so that they can safely pass through it. But there's procedures for emergency vehicles to basically not get stuck. We have instructions that we can make them familiar with, and they can practice it so that it doesn't happen. So, and there is actually enough lane width for a regular sized vehicle to move over and allow the emergency vehicle to pass through.
Any more questions? So I just wanted to add so everyone's aware. So I'm not sure if you're at all familiar, and I know my friends at Pioneer Valley Planning Commission are here, but this TIP, Transportation Improvement Program, and how
these Federal Highway Administration resources get funneled down into our local community. So this funding source, the 6.9 million or whatever it is, 6.2 million. The Federal Highway Administration provides fundings, goes to the state, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Throughout the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, there are clusters that represent a region. And in that cluster, there's these, what do you call them, TIT boards? There's a committee of people and MPOs, Metropolitan Planning Organization. There's MPO boards. I'm on the board representing, together with Chicopee Mayor, with the West Springfield Mayor, the Westfield Mayor, City of Springfield Mayor, among other representatives for smaller communities. And a lot of these projects take 10 years before they actually finally come and reach construction phase. And, you know, you got these people coming together trying to identify and prioritize how to spend these limited resources. And I'm very proud of Holyoke because between now and 2030, you're going to see a lot of movement. First, you're going to see spring of 26, Race Street to Cabot Street, Cabot all the way to the Willimantic Bridge. Total reconstruction is this funding source. You're going to see this in 2027, it looks like, 2028. And then finally in 2029, you're going to see the full reconstruction of the, if all goes as planned, the entire length of High and Maple Street, all to improve mobility safety, to improve the look and feel in the environment. I go to every one of those meetings to make sure that we're advocating for the resources here. So this isn't anything like where they say, hey, Mayor, what do you want to do with this money? Do you want to do roads? Do you want to? No, they're designed specifically to improve mobility safety in the high cluster speeding and accident areas. Okay, so if that is the criteria, how do we continue to advocate and make sure that Holyoke is seeing these resources? And this is a result of the team here doing exactly that. So between now and 2030, because of the work that our city engineer has been doing, Board of Public Works, myself, going to every meeting, the city council, continuing to advocate to make sure that Holyoke is seeing those dollars. It's not coming through our local appropriation, it's not your taxes, it's not, I mean, it is your taxes, it's state taxes, but it's not your local property tax. Sometimes it's very minimal, if it's help closing a design gap, if it's water infrastructure or old pipes that need to be replaced, those things this funding source doesn't touch, and we'll figure out how to use, but it's very rare occurrences when that happens. And we're just lucky to be able to continue to advocate for Holyoke and making sure that, you know, when you see downtown Northampton being reconstructed soon, I'm happy for Northampton, I'm a little frustrated, but it's okay. When you see the corridor going into Hadley being reconstructed, when you see Westfield looking the way it's looking, like those are all coming from this pot of money. We weren't at the table for a very long time, and so finally, you know, we're advocating, we're doing what we can to make sure that these dollars are coming in here, and you're going to start seeing in the very near future for the next 5 years, those three, I would call them major projects. They're multi-million-dollar projects that are going to give our city a facelift, but also, most importantly, improve mobility safety in our community. So with that being said, is it your turn? Excellent.
Thank you, Mayor Garcia. Can everybody hear me? Okay. So, hi, I'm Lori Hanson. I work at MassDOT in District 2 in the project development section. And I want to say it is wonderful to see you and all your smiling faces here in the room. We really appreciate your feedback. We really want to hear from you because you live here. So please talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends, get them to look at this presentation, make an appointment with Matt, and go to City Hall, look at the plans, bring your concerns. We really do want to hear from you, so thank you for coming tonight. Secondly, I want to say, I'm glad somebody mentioned, I think it was at table 15, about the possibility of maybe a fence or guardrail. Was that you? Yeah. You know, like, I'm just going to echo what Mayor Garcia said. We are very concerned about mobility and safety at DOT. It's number one, right? So we have this project. I did go to the RSA, and it was really neat to see these groups of high school students and middle school students talking and interacting, not only looking at their cell phones. But I did also have that same concern, and I think right now, if Aaron, if you could go back to that slide showing the proposed 25% design, where there is a shared use path on each side of the roundabout, and that shared use path, is that 8 feet or 10 feet?
10 feet.
That is 10 feet wide. So there are right-of-way concerns, right? We do have protected parkland, we have residences, we're already going to be, like Shirley had mentioned, we've got different types of easements going on. So it's a delicate balancing act, right? We have to try to improve everything that we can within this certain layout. We will go back and take a look at that, and our 10-foot wide shared use path is our standard. We aim for 12, but I think for this setting, we did go with 10. If we were to try to put a grass strip in there or fencing in there, then we would need to reduce that shared use path, which would then again affect bicyclists. So just keep in mind, we are very aware of the safety concerns, and we will take all of your comments to heart and look at them thoroughly and try to answer the questions. One thing I did want to bring up is, because we're at 25%, we don't have a phasing construction plan yet. When this project gets advertised, prior to that, there'll be a lot of discussion about the appropriate construction phases. So typically in the roundabout design, they will do a certain leg. You know, right here we've got the 4 legs. They'll do a certain leg at each time. So the community slowly gets acclimated to using the roundabout. It's not like it's there one day and it's not the next. It's a process, and it depends on the contractor and how they might want to tweak that phasing a little bit. And again, just keep in contact with your DPW and see the future plans as they come forward, and you can get an idea of what's going on with that construction phasing. I know that people on the side streets are concerned, so please keep looking at the plans as they get developed over the next couple of years. And I'll stop talking, so that's it. Thank you.
So thank you. I wanted to reiterate that I wasn't precluding any type of measure other than guardrail. I just was taking it kind of literally, but Laura is absolutely right that we want to do everything we can to protect pedestrians, bicyclists, and all users in the space we have provided allowable. And we're going to make every effort to do just that. And more.
Just real quick, it's very rare resident and city council too as well. But around the park, right? You said about the fence. Are we saying that there's not going to be a fence going around the park, going up Beech? Because that would be kind of a significant concern, because people will play softball, their kids are there, and their kids run around that little area, and there's a fence now, so that protects the kids from the street. If we're eliminating that fence, the kids are no longer protected from the street. So it changes the whole concept of people that used to Diamond to play softball and bring their families there. So it's a concern if we're not going to put the fence back up. Just wondering.
The fence is staying. So we have to move it. Yeah, the fence.
I thought we said, because I thought I heard it's being removed for more space with regards to handicap, or not, I mean, accessibility, just in general.
It'll be removed and then replaced, because the shared use path is going to widen the existing sidewalk, so it's going to be moved back, but
Replace it with a new fence?
Yes, with a new fence, yeah.
Because that was a concern for me, like, there's a lot of concerns
Regarding this, but at the end of the day, it makes sense with regards to traffic. I play softball there. I've been playing softball there every summer for like the last 12 years. You've seen significant accidents. You've seen close calls. You've seen car chases. You've seen a lot of different things that
counselor, I hope I didn't make things more confusing. I think I might have. What I was talking about, the fence, is not the fence you're referring to. I think the fence you're referring to is like you said, for the ball field and people let their kids play and everything. I'm talking about the potential future guardrail / fence between the shared use path and the roadway to protect the walkers and the bicyclists. And that's something that we're going to need to investigate in terms of our right-of-way and our space. That balancing act of trying to get all the design components in. Okay? Thanks.
He's just trying to hit all one easier.
Anyone else? Okay, if there are no other questions or comments, I'd like to remind you that the last sheet of the handout is a mail-in sheet. If you have any further questions or comments which you would like to submit, please email MassDOT at massdot.projectmanagement@dot.state.ma.us or use this sheet for that purpose. You may leave this sheet with me tonight, or you may mail it to the department within 10 days of this date, and it will become part of the official record. Before I close this hearing, I would like to say that we will be here as long as you are interested in looking at the plans, and we will try to respond to questions that affect you personally. Thank you very much for attending and for providing us with this facility. I declare this hearing closed at 7:44 p.m. Thank you.